Residents that were affected by recent flooding and storm damage need to file for federal assistance by telephone between 8 and 6 p.m. 7 days a week. The number is 1-800-621-FEMA or 3362 or 800-462-7585 TDY. Once a case number is received, residents can meet face-to-face with FEMA representatives with regards to their specific needs or questions relating to the damage or losses. The Disaster Recovery Center in Lorain County will open for 1 week only. The DRC is located at Carlisle Township Fire Department, 11950 LaGrange Road, beginning on Wednesday, which was yesterday, June 9th at 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., Thursday through Saturday from 9 to 6. Sunday they will be closed, but then again on Monday and Tuesday from 9 to 6.
Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
We want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Should we have a moment of silence for our former president?
That would be an excellent suggestion, Madam Commissioner. Our country is laying to rest, a very fine public servant, and whom I was privileged to see in person at one time, and was a wonderful experience. So let us observe a moment of silence in memory of Ronald Reagan. Thank you. Welcome to the June 10th public hearing on a request for annexation. I'll read this. It's a public hearing. It is approximately 0.8072 acres in Wellington Township to the Village of Wellington. Attorney John Keys Walker is the agent. Petition and map were filed in the Board of Commissioners, received by the clerk on April 9th for a regular proposed annexation. The clerk scheduled the public hearing on Thursday, June 10th, to be held Thursday, June 10th. Letters were issued to Mark Stewart, Lorain County Auditor, and Kenneth Carney, Engineer, for asking for a review and accuracy of the petition and map. The County Auditor certified the filing on April 13th, 2004. County Engineer, by letter dated April 19th, 2004, found the legal description correctly follows the map, and the acreage is adjacent and contiguous to the Village of Wellington, and Attorney Keith Walker is the acting agent for the petitioner, Robert Dybo. Board of Commissioners on April 22nd received and generalized the proposed annexation by resolution 04-287B. May 10th, the agent filed the affidavit certifying the notices were sent to the property owners, and proof of service was given on the Clerk of Wellington and Clerk of Wellington Village. May 21st, agent filed the affidavit and proof of publication in the Chronicle Telegram. June 9th, clerk received ordinance 2004-26 from the Village of Wellington indicating what services the village will provide upon the annexation to the Village of Wellington of certain lands owned by Robert and Linda Dybo, with a notation that this was to have been received 20 days prior to the hearing. At this time, Mr. Ennis, if you would like to swear in anybody who has comments, if you would going to speak, have anything to say, question, please stand and be sworn in.
Do each of you swear or affirm the statements you shall be the truth as you shall answer unto God or under penalty of the law of perjury?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Attorney, or Jerry, do you want to start?
Commissioner, first of all, we should identify the parties. As you've indicated, Mr. Attorney John Keyes Walker is here for the petitioner, and I assume the petitioners are those people with you there, John?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there anybody here from the village? The record should indicate that there's nobody here from the village. Is there anybody here from the township? Any other persons or parties wishing to speak or to be heard regarding this? Okay, the record should indicate then that the only persons here are the petitioners and the agent for the petitioners. Probably the best way to proceed at this point is to allow Mr. Keyes Walker to make an opening statement.
John?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is John Keyes Walker. I'm the agent for the petitioners in this matter, Linda and Robert Dybo. We're seeking the annexation of a rather small parcel of land, 0.8072 acres, owned by them from Wellington Township to the village of Wellington. The parcel is located on the north side of the village on State Route 58. The longest side of the parcel, 300 feet in length, borders on the boundary of the village and is adjacent and contiguous to the village. We'll put on a very brief bit of testimony from Mr. Dybo, one of the petitioners, which we expect to show that the petition will meet all the requirements of the revised code, that the petition signers are the owners of the real estate in the territory proposed to be annexed, that the valid petition signatures equal a majority of the owners of the territory proposed to be annexed, that the municipality involved, the village of Wellington, adopted an ordinance stating what services will be provided, and to wit, police, sewer, sanitation, garbage collection, and water, and when they would be provided within 30 days from the date of the annexation, that the territory involved is not unreasonably large, and that on balance the general good of the territory proposed to be annexed benefits outweigh the detriments, and the general good of the surrounding territory, the benefits of the annexation outweigh the detriments. And with that brief bit of information, we're prepared to move forward with Mr. Dybo's testimony.
If I may, Commissioners, how these proceed is kind of in a three-step process. The first thing we do is have to examine the petition itself to see if the petition conforms with all the requirements. Secondly, we look at procedural issues regarding the filings of the papers and everything, and then we do the third step, which is the merits of the annexation. So if you would, I would think we would look at that first step, the petition itself. I assume, John, neither of your parties wish to withdraw or challenge their signatures or anything like that.
No.
So the record should indicate that there has been no challenge or withdrawal with regarding to the petition. And if, John, you want to proceed with some evidence regarding the petition requirements?
And Commissioners, each of you has a packet before you of the documents that Mr. Dybo is going to be working from, that I've also provided to the clerk and Mr. Innes. The top document you have is the petition itself. And Mr. Dybo, for the record, would you please state your name and address?
Robert J. Dybo, 39569 Callahan Drive, Elyria, Ohio, 44035.
And are you seeking annexation of the property involved in the petition?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you one of the owners of the property?
Yes, sir.
Is your signature appear on the petition?
Yes, sir.
Is there another signature appears there?
Yes, sir, there is.
Who is that?
That is my wife, Linda.
Are the two of you who signed owners of the real estate in the area proposed to be annexed?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. And are you the majority of the owners in the territory?
Yes, sir, we are.
The second document you have down from the petition is an ordinance of the village of Wellington, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is that something that the village has adopted, indicating what services will be provided and when those services will be provided to the territory proposed to be annexed?
Yes, sir, it is.
And did you file your petition with the clerk of the Board of Commissioners of Lorain County, where the territory is located?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is any signature on the petition more than 180 days before the filing date of the petition?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
And does the petition contain an accurate legal legal description and an accurate map of the territory proposed to be annexed as attachments?
Yes, sir.
And did you designate John Keyes Walker and Howard Lane as your agents for the purpose of the petition?
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay. And does the petition contain their names and addresses?
Yes, sir.
At the time of the filing of the petition, did your agent also file a list of all parcels proposed for annexation with the clerk of the commissioners?
Yes, sir.
And at the time of the filing of the petition, did your agent also file a list of all parcels adjacent to or directly across the road from the territory proposed to be annexed?
Yes, he did.
And did that include the name and address of each owner of those parcels?
Yes, sir.
Did it also include the permanent parcel numbers?
I believe it did, yes, sir.
Okay, and those also indicated on the map attached to the petition for the territory proposed to be annexed.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that the territory proposed to be annexed is unreasonably large to be annexed?
No, sir, it's very small.
Okay. Is it unusual in shape in any way?
No, sir, it's rectangular.
Is there anything about the shape, size, or location which would present a difficulty to the village of Wellington to provide services to the property?
No, sir, it's adjacent to the city and it sits on a main highway.
Do you know if the village of Wellington is able to provide services to the property?
Yes, sir, there would be no difficulty.
Okay. The territory in Wellington Township remaining after the annexation, do you know if it will provide a sufficient tax base for the township to support itself and operate if the annexation proceeds?
I believe it certainly would. My property is very small and the tax base is very minor on it.
On balance, will the general good of the territory to be annexed be served if the petition is granted, in your opinion?
Yes, sir, it certainly would.
How would it best be served? What good will come from the annexation for your territory?
Well, first off, I would have immediate police protection. We're under the jurisdiction of the Sheriff's Department right now, and it's a long way from Elyria to Wellington if something would happen. We would also have sewers instead of a leach bed system. We would have waters, garbage pickup, all the niceties that people living in the cities have.
Do you believe that the annexation would have any effect on the value of your property?
Yes, sir. I believe that the property value would go up.
To ask the question a different way, will the general good of the territory proposed to be annexed be served if the petition is granted?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was that for the reasons you previously stated?
Yes, sir.
I want to ask you a little bit about the balancing that the statute requires. On balance, will the benefits of the benefits to the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area outweigh the detriments to the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area if the petition is granted?
Yes, sir, it certainly would.
How will the benefits to the territory proposed to be annexed occur?
If our property is annexed, the property directly north of us would be one step closer to having the city services. The property behind us would also be closer to having city services. Anyone around the area would benefit from the property being within the township or within the village of Wellington.
Do you see any detriments to your territory from being annexed?
No, sir.
Do you see any detriments to the surrounding territory as a result of the annexation of the territory proposed to be annexed?
No, not at all, sir.
Will the benefits of the benefits to the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area outweigh the detriments to the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area if the petition is granted?
Yes, it would be.
Don't have anything further?
Commissioners wish to address any questions to the witness?
The only question I have is a technical one, Jerry, about the receipt from the Wellington Village Council.
Yes, under the statute, that ordinance is supposed to be received within 20 days after the filing of the petition. That was not done. In fact, it was received yesterday. Is that correct,
Correct.
Teresa? What the law now says, unlike previous annexations where these kinds of procedural defects could be fatal, what the commissioners are supposed to do is look, first of all, we have to determine that there's a procedural defect, and since it is just regarding the timing of the filing, it would be my opinion that it is a procedural defect. The second thing, if that's the determination that you make, the second thing we have to do is determine whether that defect has been substantial or in any way has negatively impacted the right of anyone to challenge the annexation proceeding. Now, the time limit was missed substantially, but however, there is nobody here to challenge, so there's nobody here indicating that they were unable to prepare for this adequately. If somebody like that were here, then we could consider continuing this to give them time to prepare to refute that ordinance. But again, since I don't see anybody here, and it's my understanding, Teresa, no one has come in and asked to examine the papers or anything. It does not appear that there is anyone negatively impacted, so my recommendation is that we make a determination that that defect is not a substantial defect.
Thank you. How will we do that? Just
By motion.
also move.
Second.
But when you're talking about the defect, do we make a motion regarding that, or just noted in the record that we didn't feel it was a detriment?
That it was not substantial.
Okay. We don't need that in the motion. We
Okay.
just-
What we'll do
Because you were
then
talking a lot about it,
is-
that's why I didn't know.
Okay. If the commissioners are all in agreement with that, when we write up the findings, we will make a finding that that
Okay.
is not
A material.
material
Okay.
defect.
Okay.
That's the consensus of the commission.
So you withdraw your motion.
None, as it not
Why
being
don't
necessary.
we do that? Why don't you withdraw the motion and we'll do it as...
I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
I'll withdraw the second.
So now what, we make the motion with the,
To accept it?
what?
Did you have any other questions or
Oh,
anything?
sorry.
Is there anybody else in the audience or present here that had any other questions?
That's
Was there
true.
anything else you wanted to present, John?
Other than to ask that the commissioners accept the packet of materials, most of which are already in the clerk's file. In fact, I think all of them are already in the clerk's file, as a part of the presentation and the materials submitted. And with that, we would rest and appreciate...
I don't recall, did you have something from the village about the roads?
Well, this is on a state route, so it doesn't involve any
Okay,
village roads.
let's just get that into the record then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Try it again?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
That's all right. It's my pleasure.
Well, how's the motion going to read? Do I just move to accept? Or do you want to do
We'll probably have a much more detailed motion later on, but I think if you're going to make a motion approving this,
That's what I mean,
that
I make-
motion should be based upon a finding on the evidence that the petition is valid and meets all the requirements of the statute, that all the procedural, you getting this, Teresa? That all the procedural matters relating to annexation under the statute have been met, and that the failure to have the ordinance on time was an insubstantial procedural defect, and that based on the testimony and upon a weighing of the balance, the commissioners find that the general good to the territory outweighs any detriment, and based on that, the annexation is approved.
So moved.
Jerry,
I'm not gonna repeat that, so.
I'll second, but
Okay.
Jerry, just for my knowledge, should we, since the laws have changed on the annexations, should we indicate on the record what type of annexation this is, or does the record already show that?
I think Commissioner Blair read in the beginning that this was a regular annexation.
Correct.
Regular? Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Here you go, Teresa.
We'll be, John, within the 30 days, we'll be submitting a written.
We have to close out the hearing. I'll make a motion to close out
Adjourn.
to adjourn the annexation hearing.
Second.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
You're adjourned.
Okay, we will call the regular meeting to order now. Madam Clerk?
There are no scheduled appointments for today. Under resolutions, Job and Family Services bills,
So moved.
Second.
discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
There were no investments appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved, except for the number 1 of 6.
I'll second, with the same exception.
Any further discussion? Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
I don't. Was there advances and repayments?
I didn't see any.
You didn't see any? 'Cause I don't even see the folder here, so. Were there, John?
There was one on the advance fund transfers, Teresa. That
We'll
was
find
Was
to
that
that.
one for 61,000?
repay the general fund for homeland advance.
So there was one,
Six-
okay.
Yes, just the one.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
With that. Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Requisitions?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I
Mr. Moore?
think, wait a minute, I think there was that the requisitions? Yeah. Ron, I have a question. There was a lot of advertising on there, like $38,000 worth. Do we see benefits from all this advertisement?
Yes, Commissioners. We are allocated $100,000 every year to do the marketing, and basically, we're to the point now we need to open up for this year. We're holding back about $30,000, but this is the second wave of advertising. At least one, the radio spots that we run on WTAM out of Cleveland, we average, when we start running those ads, we average at least 8 phone calls a week, and we've not had those before. Several of the projects we've moved forward recently, not all, but many of the projects we've moved forward are a direct result of the marketing effort that we've done with that $100,000. So, we've pinched as much as we possibly can to lower our costs. Some of these, we actually are getting advertisements outside of the state by teaming up with, Cranes Cleveland and getting it out of Detroit and things like that. So we've stretched that as far as we could. That's why it's coming a little bit late this year.
But we do reap some benefits from
yes.
this. Okay, thanks, Ron.
Sure.
Any further discussion? Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Travel expenses?
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye with exception 477.
Bills?
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary for employees within the jurisdiction of Lorain County Board of Commissioners.
I didn't see any, was there any?
There was
Yes,
one
there was
person.
one.
There was a intimate building
Plans examiner.
Is this a building inspector or plans examiner?
Yeah, in order to be in compliance, we have to have somebody that's certified with the state to look at the structural elements, the heating and the air conditioning, and that's a special certification that you have with the state of Ohio to examine the plans, mark them up, and make sure that they're ready for proper construction before the construction starts, before even any inspection takes place or any ground is moved. Mr. Vargo, if you remember, was originally the plans examiner. We called him a building official. His services are no longer provided to the county, and we have been working on a contract with an individual, and what we would like to do is to get this person on this intermittent contract so that we can have them at our disposal and not work off from purchase orders.
So the building inspector doesn't do this type of work?
Right, right.
Okay.
A building inspector can eventually get to this position, but they're two different, distinctly different opportunities, and I'm not certified to do this at all. But I would
Okay.
love to.
All right, thank you.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
No.
Under the Commissioners, approve Lorain County Board of Commissioners meeting minutes and waive the reading of the same for March 25th, 2004, and April 8th, 19th, 22nd, and 29th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Number 11, support the
Consolidation.
excuse me, yes. Support the oh my.
I said it, you can move on.
Thank you. Of the functions of the Domestic Relations and Probate Divisions of Lorain County Court of Common Pleas through the statutory creation of Lorain County Court of Common Pleas, Domestic Relation, Probate, and Juvenile Divisions. This support utilizes the rules of superintendents for the Court of Ohio to assign cases pursuant to Superintendent's Rule 36B until such time a statutory change becomes effective. This change does not take effect prior to January of 2009.
I think Susan Ward is here and would like to speak on the issue.
Good morning, Commissioners. Susan Ward from the Domestic Relations Division. I want to thank you for revisiting this very important issue. It was visited earlier and at great length, but there have been significant changes in how this would come about, and I think these changes are what is so strikingly important at this time. If I may go into how this creation would come about, is that something that the Commissioners want to hear?
Yes.
Okay. Upon approval by the Commissioners, your board, this would be presented to Columbus for legislation. So at this point, we're asking the Commissioners to support it for two very good reasons, which I could go into later. But if it goes to Columbus, and Columbus statutorily, they would create a shell. This shell would be the Domestic Relations Probate Juvenile Division of the Lorain County Court of Common Pleas. It is a shell, and nothing but a shell at this point. As each of the judges in those three divisions, as their term ends, at the people, current judges or new candidates, as they campaign for the new seat, the next term beginning, they would be campaigning for a seat on the bench in the newly created Domestic Relations Probate Juvenile Division. So it affects nobody until, it doesn't affect any court until such time as those judges actually run for office, or those candidates, whichever the case may be. And then at that time, when the new term takes effect, as I would envision this flowing, the first two judges that would be affected by this would be Judges Baczynski and Judge Lilly, who run in 2006. They would be running for a seat on the newly created Domestic Relations Probate Juvenile Division. And then in January 2007, when they take the bench, I'm assuming without any hesitancy on my part that they would take the bench in 2007, they would be the first judges in this newly created court. Then the probate division would be the second court to move into this new shell of a division. And that would occur, the campaign would occur in 2008, and then in 2009, the newly elected judge would enter into this new division. Judge Boros, her seat would be the last one. Her next election will be in 2010, taking the bench in this newly created shell division in January of 2011. So that's the process. That other than assigning cases on an as-needed basis, which occurs now as needed and not infrequently, it wouldn't affect any of these courts until such time as that term ended and a new term commenced. That's what is so different now as before. It doesn't take anybody out of what they're doing. It doesn't change their role. It changes the person that's taking the bench. It changes that role. And
Questions?
any questions?
So it's my understanding that this is going to be a tremendous savings to the county.
Absolutely. I mentioned there are two reasons to why subject matter, we've gone over the subject matter. I'm going to answer that in answering in its completion. The subject matter, there are time and time again where serious cases are delayed because of the lack of common jurisdiction. And I'm going to give you two real easy examples. The first are the non-support cases, criminal non-support. They reach the felony level when the non-support has reached a certain when non-support in the child support case reaches a certain level, it becomes a felony. I'm not going to go into the underlying factors, but that's how it occurs. The case begins in juvenile through child support orders, and then upon noncompliance, it becomes a felony at some point, and then it is heard in the general division. Now, what may happen in the general division, and does happen quite frequently, the defendant challenges some part of that underlying child support case. They may challenge the paternity. I'm not the father. They may challenge, I didn't get notice. There was no notice. I never received notice. I was out of state. They may challenge, I paid more than this. Their records are wrong. But unfortunately, in the general division, there is no ability to address those challenges. So it's put on hold in the general division. The matter is sent back over to the domestic relations court to address these issues to see if there is any validity to the challenge. And then upon the resolution of that challenge, then it goes back over to the general division. Now, that is a very time-consuming process to go from one division to the other to address issues that all are impacted in this one child support case. If it's under one division, then the courts would have the ability to immediately address those challenges, or within a very timely fashion address those challenges to the underlying child support case, which makes up the criminal non-support. A second issue is an adoption. Cases go through very, very serious, heart-wrenching, emotional cases go through a permanent custody in the domestic relations division. Permanent custody is granted, and then they have to change courts, start the process from square one in a different division in order for an adoption to take place. That's very wrenching, it's very time-consuming, and in this scenario, it's unnecessary. There would be a smooth transition where cases, so subject matter, there are a lot of reasons why it will go smoothly. The other issue, which is to answer your specific question, domestic relations court is the most expensive court to operate in this system. We have magistrates because of the huge number of cases that come before this court. There is an absolute need for magistrates to help out. Magistrates are not an inexpensive item when there are 3 per court. So in the event, and it will happen, that an additional 4th domestic relations court is needed, you're looking at just staffing alone will cost you between $600,000 and $700,000 a year. That is a significant cost. And if we combine an additional judge, and I have provided to the commissioners at an earlier date a breakdown of the actual to the T number of cases that have come into the court for the last I think 10 years, several years. And I have it now if you'd like to review it, if you don't have it in front of you. Commissioner Moore has it in front of him. Probate is a very stable court. Their cases run between 2,000 and 2,200 a year, and it doesn't change. So if you combine that court with three other judges, and so you have 4 courts within this new system, and combine the cases, that allows a sharing of resources. And it would allow, it would mean that the necessity for adding a 4th DR judge, I just don't know how long you could hold off needing what would now be a 5th judge up in this division. Because with the sharing of resources, the sharing of case numbers, it would lower the cases per judge by about 400, and that is a significant lowering in cases. Our cases are stable in domestic relations. There's a little reduction. The offside of that is they are becoming, through legislative changes, so complicated, both in juvenile and domestic, that they require more and more hearings to accomplish what was done in 3 or 4 hearings years ago. So the numbers are stable in domestic, but the complexity is rising dramatically. So with the assistance of a 4th judge added to this mix, whether it's a domestic relations judge or if it's a newly created domestic relations probation juvenile division judge, what you've done is share the ability to handle a huge number of cases. And by doing so, I would anticipate that you would not need another judge in that division for 10, 15 years possibly. I don't know what the county's going to do in the next 10 or 15 years, but if I look at history, we typically need a new judge in this division every 10 years. That's going to come up in 2008 and 2009. By doing this, it would forestall the need for another judge for many, many years, which if you look at that equates to a savings of almost $2 million between now and the next 10 years.
My understanding is, A, they've been wanting a judge since I've been here. B, I like the economic impact and that it's going to save. I figure it's about $1 million a year from what we did, what Mr. Oakley put together for us. So I see that as a savings, a lot more than $2 million.
I only looked at the bare...
One of the holdouts is wondering if 9 judges could all agree. And I was impressed to find out on Monday that I heard that all 9 judges now agree for this format. And so
I cannot speak for Judge Horvath personally. I can speak,
I was called and I was informed that there was support from all 9. And so
and I think that's what I know. I speak for the general division, and they would be here if requested. They're ready to come over.
This, all we're doing is just approving a letter. I understand we have nothing to do with it other than that, except for that this has nothing to do except the county commissioners have to approve it or not, and then it's basically a fight with the state legislators and the Supreme Court, is it? Or
all you are doing is saying that the commissioners support the concept and the creation of this court. Then it is up to the proponents to go to Columbus and finish it out and see that it is legislatively legislatively created. And if there is any challenge, it will happen at the legislature. So you are not creating this court. You are supporting the legislative creation. I've tried to provide what I'm hoping are extraordinarily sound reasonings why this is a good move to make. And because of the method of creation now, it takes it out of any argument that, and I respect the argument that Judge Horvath, who is a great judge, ran for probate judge. I respect that totally. And to be uplifted midstream is a very probably undesirable thought that all of a sudden you're going to be a domestic relations judge. People don't always flock to be domestic relations judges for very good reasoning sometimes. But with this scenario and with the way this would be created, that's not an issue. Judge Horvath will remain a probate judge through the entire completion of his tenure.
which is when?
He,
2009.
the campaign,
2009.
the campaign is 2008,
Okay.
and the new judge would take office January of 2009.
But it still has to be passed by the legislator. And
Oh, absolutely. This is a first step of many.
Susan, I want to commend you. I know you've worked very, very hard on this, and we've had a lot of conversation, and I want to commend you for all the work you've done. I think you've covered every base and every argument that I could give you.
I've tried.
But I think it'll work when you bring it to the legislators. You should have all the information.
I feel positive that, I feel comfortable, I feel that it's going in a positive direction with the creative means that we have available to us.
I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the pleasure of the board?
Well,
Oh. Not Myron. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Myron Harkis with the Lorain County Probate Court. I work for Judge Horvath. Judge Horvath learned of this meeting last week, and unfortunately, he had a prior commitment, so he can't be here today. And he just asked that I relay that before you decide that he be given a chance to give another perspective on this issue. So I'm asking the commissioners to table this for 1 week on your decision.
okay, I understand, and he did call me and notified me that he wasn't in town, that he was at a seminar, and I was going to inform
That's correct.
the other two commissioners to decide what they want to do. But you know, and I'm sure that Judge Horvath understands that this really doesn't affect his position, because that was a real concern to me, and Susan and I discussed this, that he was elected as a probate judge, and I didn't want to go back in the face of the voters and just say, okay, now, you know, we realize that this is what you elected this person for, but we're going to change that. So Susan addressed that issue. It doesn't change his position at all. And I'm hoping that Judge Horvath is aware of that. And I asked Teresa to put that in the resolution just to be sure that his position wouldn't change until 2009, and it's my understanding that he won't run again.
Well, I'm not here really to address the merits because this is so
Yeah.
new to us. I'm just asking that the board delay for 1 week to give Judge Horvath a chance to address the concept also.
But would you bring that information back to him? Because, you know, I just don't want to...
Yes, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
So what is the pleasure of the board?
Excuse me. Elizabeth Ramex Oberlin. Is this novel and an experiment for Lorain, or has this been done elsewhere? And my assumption from the presentation is that the judges in these specific courts would feel, I hate to say it this way, would feel competent to address matters that might come up in other courts. As I say, that's my assumption, which I trust is the case.
Susan, can you speak to that?
It's my understanding that this is not experimental. Is that true?
The Supreme Court several years ago indicated their support for a unified family court. The Supreme Court has felt that by the subject matter jurisdiction that this is the appropriate way to handle cases that involve the family. The Supreme Court will not dictate to the local counties because in many cases this might end up costing the counties. In Lorain County it's the reverse. It's a cost savings of tremendous dollars. But the Supreme Court believes that this has been starting in other counties. We are not the first county to go in this direction. As far as the competence, to say that one judge, they are elected to the Court of Common Pleas. To say that one judge, and I believe that we are blessed in Lorain County to have 9 very gifted, intelligent, when you're a trained attorney, you're not going to make a decision on something that is brand new to you without doing your research. And that's why in many cases the courts all have either law clerks or magistrates. They have assistants to help them, and they are fully competent to go in any direction that they're asked to do, and they're fully wise enough not to go into a decision-making process without doing their homework. And to suggest otherwise, I respectfully submit, is somewhat insulting to the 9 judges on the bench today.
Thank you, Susan.
It's my understanding too, Susan, that what this is going to do is take a family that starts off in children's service, for example, and just keeps the family in one court so
Yes.
that everything pertaining to that family is understood by one court and not divided from this court to another court. So, you know, when it goes in common pleas, they don't understand the starting point.
That's exactly the concept, that when you're dealing with the family and the issues are sometimes so complex in what happens to families and how to deal with them and to best preserve the family unit, if at all possible, and sometimes it's not possible, but if it is, you want to do the best service and the best judicial service that you can provide to a family. And skipping around on different jurisdictions, I can't envision that it can ever be the best for the family. And there is an overlap that repeatedly occurs between domestic and general, and domestic and probate. I would respectfully submit that you address this issue today. I'm asking you to. I think the issue of where it is best served by subject matter jurisdiction is for the legislature. That is their duty. You are only indicating that you support this to go forward. It's up to the legislature, and if there are those in the community that feel that it is not best suited that way, the time and place to go do that is in hearing in front of the Senate or the House of Representatives. That's where it should be, to indicate to them that you disagree with the Supreme Court and to convey your reasons why it shouldn't happen that way.
Okay, thank you. What is the pleasure of the board?
Although I respect Judge Horvath's desire to be here to address the board, I think I know where he stands, and I thought his main issue was combining this and agreeing that it would take away the vote of the people. But being that he really doesn't, it doesn't affect him at all. I don't know, it's up to you. Is it detrimental that we vote on this week?
Commissioner Vacy, with all due respect, this issue has been raised, it's been discussed by the magistrate Harker's own admission. The judge knew about this last week. He waits until the day, and there could be very compelling reasons to wait, but the judge's feelings are well known on this. There has been a way created that absolutely protects the entire tenure of his term on the bench.
See, that's my understanding why I heard that there was 100% support. It doesn't affect probate till '09.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll make a motion to support.
Well, I'll second it, but like I said, I don't think it's going to make a difference whether we vote on it today or next week.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, call the
Mr.
roll,
Moore?
please.
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Mr. Harkis.
Number 12, grant the petition for annexation of 75.45 acres from Eaton Township to the City of Valeria. Attorney John L. Keyes Walker is agent for the petitioners.
Mr. Ennis?
Just to refresh the Commissioner's memory, we had all the hearings regarding this several weeks ago. What we were awaiting was receipt of an annexation agreement between the City of Valeria and Eaton Township. That has been submitted. I prepared a very lengthy resolution regarding this matter. Essentially, if you recall, the evidence was submitted by stipulation with both the city and the township agreeing to the annexation. There was no opposition whatsoever. So I have prepared a resolution approving the annexation. In summary, it states pretty much what we had earlier did with the earlier annexation, that all the petition requirements required by statute have been met, all the procedural matters required by statute have been met, and that on balance, the general good of the territory to be annexed is served, and the benefits to the territory proposed to be annexed in the surrounding area outweigh the detriment to those areas.
And this is a regular annexation?
This too also is a regular annexation. And by law, we are under the deadline to vote on this.
Did you have any comments you want to make, John?
No.
You made them all.
Appreciate the time that the commission has spent on this previously.
I thought his comment would be please.
What is the pleasure of the board on item 12?
So moved to pass.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
13, approve change order number 4 to Liberty Mutual Insurance Company, Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $25,000 for additional work at the Lorain County Justice Center to be paid from account 40004-0201-491501 Q Construction. Said change order is for an increase for bid package 16A, allowance per specification section 01210.1.04B.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Award bids to various vendors for food items to be supplied to Lorain County Golden Acres County Home and Lorain Medina Community-Based Correctional Facility for the period of July 1st, 2004 through December 31st, 2004.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Under Community Development Department, instruct the clerk to advertise for bids for the CDBG FY03 roadway improvement project on Clinton Avenue in Sheffield Township. This notice will be published in the Morning Journal on June 14th and 21st, and bids to be open at 2:30 p.m. Monday, June 28, 2004, in the Commissioners' Public Hearing Room.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Under Job and Family Services, approve and enter into various purchase of service contracts between Lorain County Department of Job and Family Services, effective July 1st, 2004 through June 30th, 2005, and authorize director to execute on behalf of the board as to prosecutors with approval as to form. 1. Lorain County Office on Aging for fiscal year 2005 for the Kinship Navigator Program, contract is in the amount not to exceed $53,415, and Common Ground Oberlin to deliver a self-exploration, asset discovery, and environmental educational program to OWF participants. Contract is in the amount not to exceed $31,409.96.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Approve and enter into Amendment Number 1 of the 4D Purchase of Service Contract between Lorain County Child Support Enforcement Agency and Lorain County Domestic Relations. Contract is effective retroactive to May 3rd, 2004 through December 31st, 2004, and said amendment will reflect an increase in the contract amount value by $41,582. All other provisions of contract approved on January 22nd, 2004 by Resolution 04-45 will remain in effect.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Approve and enter into various agreements between Lorain County Department of Job and Family Services for OWF children using TANF funds. 1. JCPenney incentive sales of Rosemont, Illinois in the amount not to exceed $300,000 for the purchase of school clothing and clothing-related accessories. And 2. To Target, Elyria in the amount not to exceed $325,000 for purchase of school clothing and clothing-related accessories.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Enter into a maintenance plan contract with Maximus, Inc., Columbus, Ohio, in the amount of $2,225. This contract is effective July 1st, 2004 through June 30th, 2005, and will be paid from account 20501-0903-450101 Contract Services for the Windows version of the Quarterly Information System, QUIC, and Random Moment Sampling Systems, RMS.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Approve and enter into purchase a service contract between Lorain County Child Support Enforcement Agency and Lorain County Domestic Relations Court to provide voluntary medication services to unwed and divorced parents in parent education classes, which encourages non-custodial parents to support their children with the Access Visitation Program. Contract is effective July 1st, 2004 through September 30th, 2004, with an amount not to exceed $7,575.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under the Workforce Development Agency, amend Resolution Number 03-510, adopted June 26, 2003, approving and entering into purchase of service contracts between Lorain County Board of Commissioners and the Workforce Development Agency with the funding source available through Workforce Investment Act. Said amendment is to reflect an increase in funding in the amount of $6,600 with El Centro de Services Socials, Inc. from $185,000 to $191,600 to continue operation of the Project Conquest Youth Program.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under Alcohol and Drug Addiction Services Board, amend Resolution Number 04389, adopted May 27, appointing and reappointing various members to Lorain Alcohol and Drug Addiction Services Board. Said amendment is to reflect the terms are for 4 years, not 3, for Ken Roberts and Jonathan Ballant, effective July 1st, 2004, expiring June 30th, 2008.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Under the Mental Health Board, request Lorain County Auditor pursuant to ORC Section 5705.03 to certify to Lorain County Board of Commissioners the total current tax valuation of Lorain County and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by a replacement of 1.2 mills for the purpose of the Mental Health Board.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Under MRDD, instruct the clerk to advertise for bids for the renovation of existing pole and deck flooring for Murray Ridge School, Elyria. Notice will be published in the Chronicle Telegram on June 11th and 18th. Pre-bid meeting will be June 10th at 9 a.m. at 9759 Murray Ridge Road, and bids to be open at 2 p.m. in the Commissioners' Public Hearing Room on June 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Award contract to Gene Resar, Elyria, Ohio, for the renovation addition to the Meister Road Group Home. 3 bids were received. This was the best complying with specifications, and contract is the amount of $175,680 to be paid from account 25401-3301-440401 Capital Improvements.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Appoint either Janet Taylor or Kurt Kof as a member to Lorain County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities, filling the unexpired term of Jim Marsaglia, who resigned effective June 10, 2004, expiring December 31st, 2005.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Moore?
Yes, if you don't mind, this is one of those boards, and I think the three of us understand, it's hard finding people to fill out a board seat. This seat was requested when I first took office, that if it ever came up, that Mr. Kep would like that seat, or at least have a shot at it. This is one of those boards in which the probate judge has the ability to fill appointments, and the commissioners each have a appointment for this board. Unfortunately, the position that Mr. Ross filled won't expire until after I'm gone. So if it's the pleasure of the board, because I know Ms. Taylor and Mr. Kep, I think they're both fine people. I've met both of them, and I've discussed several issues with them in the past. I wonder if it would be a nice halfway point if we could nominate both, in which Ms. Taylor could finish out the term, but if I could actually have the motion, I don't know if the prosecutors see this as appropriate, if I could ensure that Mr. Kep could have the appointment of somebody that's already sitting, even though it hasn't expired. if there is such a way to do that. I'm trying to find some happy medium here. Do you think that's appropriate, Commissioner Blair, or do you think there's a...
Well, just one
Okay.
question. Didn't you say, Teresa, that there's an opening at the end of the year?
December 31st?
Correct, that would be Commissioner Moore's appointment, but it's December 31st, 2004 expiration.
Our last meeting is December 16th, and I don't think I'm going to be here in January, so...
Jerry?
Well, actually, all the
Well,
commissioners'
I
appointments are
don't
on
think we
December
can make an
31st.
appointment in the future.
I know.
If what you're saying is we would,
It would,
I'm just trying to find a happy medium, and, I'm
It would-
kind
it
of
would-
outside the box half the time anyway, so...
really? I hadn't noticed that. It would displace someone else at that time.
Yes.
Well, Commissioner Vacy, you have comments?
Well, I'm waiting to hear from Jerry if it can be
no,
done.
we can't actually make
Commitment?
we can't actually make the appointment, I suppose, if commissioners, I suppose, could indicate their willingness to make that, support that candidate. They could do that, but we can't actually appoint Mr. Kep to succeed this term, because you can't make that appointment until the seat becomes vacant.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so what we're doing right now is just voting to fill
An
Jim
unexpired-
Marsiglia's position.
That's the main thing right now, and the issue is we have two fully capable people. And I'm just requesting that Mr. Kep be the one for the appointment.
Commissioner Vacy, what is your pleasure?
Well, Jim was my appointment, but since I
was he?
have no one else...
We have Ron Summers as yours. That's what they had here.
Okay, I know that Jim was,
Oh, was he?
might have been several years ago.
Oh, you know what?
But it doesn't matter to me because I have no one right now to appoint to that.
Oh,
And I always look at it, if someone is interested in that position, they're going to do a good job. So you indicated that either of these people were very interested.
yes.
So it doesn't matter to me, have your choice.
Make a motion to appoint Kurt Kep as a member of the Lorain County Board of Mental Retardation Development Disabilities, just filling the unexpired term of Jim.
Marsiglia.
Yep.
Okay. I'll second.
Any further discussion?
None here.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
We
And,
could make a note to keep Ms. Taylor's application for the expired term on December 31st.
There will be 3
For the new-
expired terms on December 31st,
Okay.
actually.
I would appreciate if we could
Or
keep...
she could fill in as your liaison. You know, just sit in. She wouldn't have voting authority, but she could just sit in on the meetings to become aware and familiar with the issues.
Well, that's fine. I just want to make sure we don't forget
I mean,
about
it's
her.
her decision.
I know.
At this time, Madam Clerk, we'll deviate from the agenda a little bit. Dr. Amber Fisher, who is the new Director of the Mental Retardation Developmental Disabilities, is here. Doctor, would you like to come to the microphone? I think you had something you wanted to say to us, and this is under your department.
Yes.
And by the way, welcome.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioners. I've been superintendent of the local Board of Mental Retardation since February of this year, and I came this morning to ask your support in opposing 2 Ohio Department of Job and Family Services rules that went before the Joint Committee on Agency Rule Review on June 3rd. These rules involve contracting and reimbursement for certain Medicaid services that are delivered to people with MRDD, and I believe that an action alert was disseminated by the Ohio County Commissioners Association during this last week. I just wanted to take this opportunity to come this morning to personally explain some of the issues and why we feel that the rules that went before JCAR are contrary to the interests of people with MRDD and to the interests of the taxpayers. Essentially, there are 2 rules. The first rule is a reimbursement rule, and it's titled Reimbursement for Rehabilitation Center Services. This rule is problematic for county boards because under House Bill 94, which was fairly recent legislation affecting the field of MRDD, county boards of MRDD are now responsible to use local dollars to pay 42% of the cost of certain Medicaid services for people with MRDD. And the services that are addressed in this rural habilitation center services, which include OT, PT, speech, these are different therapies, delegated nursing, psychological services that are primarily delivered to individuals with mental retardation in our adult day program, are considered Medicaid state plan services, so they are entitlements. And in most cases, the rates that are included in this habilitation center reimbursement rule are excessive. They're considerably above the rates that the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services currently pays for similar services, and significantly above the usual and customary rates for those services. Just to give you an example, in Delaware County, services for children with autism that previously cost $45,000 per year, under the new rule would cost $328,000 per year. Some other problems with the reimbursement rule is that it temporarily removes the statutory requirement that teams from within the mental retardation system approve services that are funded under the CAVS Medicaid program. And one very disturbing element of the rule is that public providers would need to reconcile payments made in excess of the actual cost of delivering services. Private providers would have no such obligation. So essentially, county boards are in a position where they would be required to pay private providers for services delivered at exorbitant rates. The private providers we'd have no mechanism to have them reconcile for payments made above the cost of delivering the services, and essentially would have no mechanism for controlling the volume of services that were being provided by these private providers. That sort of sums up the concerns within the MRDD system about the reimbursement rule. And the second rule is a contract rule, and this is of concern because essentially it allows county boards no ability to terminate the contract for non-adherence to the terms, or to refuse a contract if necessary to protect the interests of people with MRDD and the interests of the taxpayers. What we'd like to see is a rule that would allow county boards to refuse or terminate services while giving providers public hearing protections and appeal protections. So essentially, the status of these two rules, they went before JCAR on June 3rd. They were tabled. The two rules remain under the jurisdiction of JCAR until June 19th. And what they've done is put together a committee of JCAR members to study the issues. And what I would request at this point is your consideration of sending a letter to members of JCAR who are currently considering the issues and considering the rules, opposing the rules for the reasons that I stated. There was actually a template letter that came out from the Ohio County Commissioners Association, and I've brought a copy of that I could provide to Mr. Cordes, and I changed a couple of words since the June 3rd hearing has already occurred, but I would be happy to supply Mr. Cordes with copies of the letters that were endorsed by your association, and would certainly appreciate your consideration of signing those letters and sending them to the JCAR members.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
No, but I appreciate you coming in because CCAO has brought it up before the Board of Trustees, and we're aware of it, but it's good to hear from you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in and meeting you today.
Okay,
Dr.
thank you.
Fisher.
Welcome aboard.
Are we sending the letter?
Yes, I would move to send the letter of making them aware that we are not in support of these issues.
With the changes that are going to be submitted by...
Yes, with those changes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Present.
You sure you shouldn't have been a comedian?
I'm not being funny.
Number 27 on the prosecutor, authorize filing various grant renewals to the Attorney General Office for the Victim Witness Program administered through the Lorain County Prosecutor's Office, effective October 1st, 2004 through September 30, 2005. $49,713 for 2 part-time advocates and 1 full-time Hispanic advocate. The total request in the amount of $66,284 with a local cash match of $16,571 from the County General Fund allocation account 001014901492605, and 2, $22,757 for a single advocate for juvenile court. The total request is in the amount of $30,343 with the local cash match of $7,586 from the County General Fund allocation account 001014901492605.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
Commissioners, as you know, tomorrow is a national day of mourning for former President Ronald Reagan. Some employees in the building have contacted your office and are requesting that we attempt to coordinate a moment of silence at the commencement of services for former President Reagan, and I would like to know if this is agreeable to the board.
Yes, I would
Yep.
agree.
So we'll do so within as many county facilities as we can. We'll attempt to coordinate that at the same time. Thank you. I have no further comments or discussion points this morning.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor?
I have no report this morning.
Commissioners report.
I'm here.
See?
I have none.
Commissioner Moore?
I have none.
I have none.
Old business?
None.
New business?
None.
Board correspondence?
I move the reading be waived.
Second?
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Right. One thing that might be noted is number 12
Yes.
on the
Why don't
agenda.
you,
I did put papers in the back. It's also on the web. Residents that were affected by recent flooding and storm damage need to file for federal assistance by telephone between 8 and 6 p.m. 7 days a week. The number is 1-800-621-FEMA or 3362 or 800-462-7585 TDY. Once a case number is received, residents can meet face-to-face with FEMA representatives with regards to their specific needs or questions relating to the damage or losses. The Disaster Recovery Center in Lorain County will open for 1 week only. The DRC is located at Carlisle Township Fire Department, 11950 LaGrange Road, beginning on Wednesday, which was yesterday, June 9th, at 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., Thursday through Saturday from 9 to 6. Sunday they will be closed, but then again on Monday and Tuesday from 9 to 6.
And when we issued the emergency, what I heard a lot from the EMA team is that some people think their insurance covered their flooding, and they said that a lot of people don't realize that when it's too late that they have no access to funds. So even if you think you're covered with insurance, you should at least apply for some federal dollars or some state dollars. Just to let people know, because a lot of people think they're covered, they got some money coming, then it's too late, and then they're left holding the bag. So.
In the words of a wise commissioner, if you don't ask for something, you're never going to get it. I'd like to take an opportunity to tell the commissioners how pleased we should be with the performance of our EMA department. They read the situation. They didn't have to open up the disaster stations. They did and started taking calls, trying to see what the extent was, engage whether we could get in under the wire for that emergency aid, and then the board was called in a hurry, and the board responded very quickly to come in and pass the necessary resolutions. A lot of counties missed that window of opportunity, and because of the proactive and aggressive actions taken by your EMA department, we were able to bring the county in under the time frames and subsequently be able to provide additional aid to our residents. And I want to congratulate the EMA department on a job well done.
Public comment.
Anyone wishing to address the board, you come to the microphone and state your name.
Move Move to adjourn?
Second?
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
You're adjourned.
Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Every year in Lorain County, hundreds of children are abused and neglected. Many are removed from their homes for their protection. Judges must decide their futures, but they need information to make these critical decisions. You can provide this information through Voices for Children. Volunteers are men and women from all walks of life with no special or legal background who work alongside attorneys, social workers, and other court employees. As an officer of the court, you find out as much as you can about the child. You will review records, interview parents and relatives, foster parents, talk to teachers, neighbors, and most importantly, the child. When the volunteer has a complete profile, he or she appears in court to recommend what is best for the child's future. You've heard the statistics on child abuse. Now is your chance to do something about it. You don't need any special qualifications, only the desire to protect local children who desperately need your help. To become a special advocate or for more information on our next training session, call Voices for Children today.
Unsightly litter is often the result of well-intentioned people like you and me being careless at the curb, around business areas, and at work sites. Lucky the Ladybug, Ohio's first lady of litter prevention, says nobody wants to live or work around trash. Litter lowers property values and it's costly to clean up.
Keep Lorain County beautiful. Put the lid on trash.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for allowing us to be up here today. I'd like to give a brief overview of the office, especially what's happened over the last couple of years with the new building, et cetera, and where we want to go in the future. The agency was started in early 1986. Director Brian Nelson was the hire with no staff. He literally had a desk in a hallway at the Gates building, and that's where he worked out of for about 9 months. It's funny to listen to or look back through some of the information that was on file for that. The day before the commissioners voted to put the agency into existence, the county had like a 3.9 earthquake, so I guess it was Mother Nature had a good prod to have things start. Yeah. Administrative assistant secretary was added in 1988, which was shared with 911 at that time. Shortly after that, there was another secretary that was hired to take care of EMA only. Hazmat data person was added in 1990, and we'll talk about the hazardous materials database in a couple minutes here. Emergency management coordinator, which was my position when I started there, was in 1990, October 1990, and a hazardous materials compliance person or officer was added in 1997. Our staff consists of 4 people, including myself. Alice Weber, her title is Emergency Operations Manager. She does actually 2 jobs. She does administrative assistant work during the day, and if I'm not there, she's the acting director, and she's also in charge of the operations of the Emergency Operations Center when it's activated. Karen LaCourchick, her title is EMA Specialist. She does tracks the hazardous materials database, and she also tracks and coordinates training for the firefighters, police officers, et cetera, in the county when it's needed, and keeps a record of who does what. Caroline Hanaho, she's our newest add, like I said, about 6 years ago. She does hazardous materials compliance. She goes out and knocks on doors and makes sure that we're in compliance with the community right to know laws and tracks the facilities that we have. And she also takes care of all the county hazmat team personnel's training records and the equipment on the vehicle also. So it's all up to snuff and it's in order that has to be used. Our facility, the original building was at 322 North Gateway. It was constructed out of the old Gates School boiler room when they got rid of the steam boilers and put in rooftop units. They stuck a floor in the boiler room, and that's what it was. It was rather small. and still is. It's now being used by the Record Center for store records. Some volunteer amateur radio people converted a 14 by 14 foot basement space into a radio room and emergency operations center. Like I said, that was an old boiler room. It had no heat, no air circulation, no air conditioning. When the emergency operations center is up and activated with there's 16, 18 people in it, you can imagine what a room that size is with no ventilation. It's not the best place to do business in. If you remember 7, 8 years ago, there was an incident in Elyria where a gentleman used pesticide, and the EPA and the federal EPA had to come in and clean some homes up. They worked in our basement for about 6 days and decided to go rent space somewhere else because they called it a dungeon. They didn't want to be there any longer. 911 is added to the west side of the building, small center in 1988, and then of course just recently the new addition to 911 and a totally new EMA facility that was dedicated and opened on September 11th last year, 2002. That's a picture of the ribbon cutting. It was a beautiful day. We invited 100 people and 225 showed up, and it was nice. It's an aerial picture of the building. Robin Jones, who was here, I believe, last week and did a 911 presentation, we had an argument of who was going to have the best picture of the facility. So I'd like to thank you for the $1,000 purchase order to rent that plane that I got to take that. Just kidding. The building, if you look like at the 9 o'clock position or out to the left there, is a two-bay garage where our vehicles are stored, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. And as you move to the right, that's the newer facility. It's basically, we moved out of nothing, and now we have a state-of-the-art facility that meets all the standards. Probably the most predominant feature in the building that no one actually sees from the outside is the Emergency Operations Center. And this is what took the place of the 14 by 14 foot space that was in the basement. It's staffed by volunteers. There are 16 positions that normally work in there, and I've got a few of them listed. The EOC director, which I told you, Alice, does that. An EOC coordinator. Public Works, that's manned by someone from the county engineer's office that tracks whatever would need to be done during there. Public Health, the county health department usually sits there, but if it's individual jurisdictions such as Lorain or Elyria, their health commissioner is there. The coroner, if he's needed. Hospital and emergency medical services. The fire chiefs have a representative in there. The sheriff's department represents law enforcement. Shelter and mass care is done by the Red Cross. Resource coordination is done by our office. We have an extensive resource database that has anything, if we needed Big Macs at 2 o'clock in the morning to feed firefighters, up to 100-ton cranes if we had to remove debris from a building collapse or stuff like that. It's quite an extensive resource database. Public information, we have a group of 3 people that put together news releases and put information out to the public during emergencies, so it takes the load off of us so we don't have to deal with that. We have a person that has newspaper background, one has radio background, one has television background, so we've covered the 3 areas that we have to do. Damage assessment, there's a team of 7 people that are put together. Most of them consist of the building department from the city of Elyria. Mayor Grace was kind enough to allow his people to be trained in that. And what that is used for, if there's an emergency and we have a lot of damage to homes and buildings, they can actually go out and give us a monetary amount and give that to the state. So in case we are eligible for disaster relief, we have the monetary amount available. That's the first thing the state asks us for. Within 15 minutes after an incident, they want to know how much damage we have, so we have someone in place. Of course, there's message runners and status board coordinators who take care of all the paperwork that's moving back and forth in that room when it's in operation. The last time it was used full scale was during the blackout. We were in there from about 20 after 4 in the afternoon until about 4:30 in the morning. And then we're back in at 8 o'clock, so it worked very well. The EOC equipment, and in fact the whole facility, including 911, is entirely battery backed up and also generator backed up. If you would have been in there the day of the blackout, you never would have known the power went off. When the power drops, the entire facility goes on batteries. It's capable of running on batteries for an hour and a half. And then within 20 seconds, the generators come on and it dumps over. So like I said, it was seamless. You wouldn't have seen anything happen. And it performed well. The EOC has an independent telephone system. We do not, the phones at those positions do not operate through the county switchboard system. They're on their own. So in case we lose something here, we still have the capability to communicate on the outside. Radio equipment in the radio room. We have police, fire. We can talk to all the utilities, the county transit system, ham radio, which we use extensively, amateur radio operators. We basically have the equipment with amateur radio to be able to talk around the world at that facility if we had to. We have Doppler weather radar that is satellite fed by a satellite dish on the roof, and we can monitor weather conditions locally. There's a wind vane and temperature monitor and rain monitor on the roof also. We have emergency alert system capability. You probably heard that on television. Always when you want to see something happen, the screen goes blank, and there's a test of the emergency alert system. We have that capability in our basement also. We punch the button and we can take the television and radio off the air and put whatever we want over the air. We used that last Friday night during the evacuation in Lorain when Cloverdale Foods had the ammonia release. We have a system called AlertCast. One of our problems during emergency is making notifications in bulk by telephone. If we had to notify all the schools at one time if something's going on, you can imagine a staff of even 12 people made individual phone calls. It would take forever to call 120 schools. AlertCast is a system where we can call into an 800 number, enter a code, record a message, hang up, and it makes 200 phone calls at once for us. So I can record a message to, and all the mayors are in there, the fire chiefs, the police chiefs, the township trustees, the school superintendents, the school principals, so whatever group we want to notify, we can do that. And it gives us, when it's finished making those calls, it gives us a fax report of who answered and who didn't, so we can call, if we have to call back and double check, we can do that. And of course, you saw in that one picture the status boards they used to track the status of an emergency as it progresses. I'd like to talk about the vehicles we have for a couple minutes. In addition to the Suburban and the station wagon we have for everyday use, the truck on the right, the green truck, is Mobile Command Communications Unit. That came out of a lessons learned meeting that we had after the Aztec explosion in Elyria, where we had nothing to use on site. The weather was windy that night. We couldn't move. We had to move out of the area. We had nothing to work in, and we all approached the commissioner, the board of commissioners at that time, and said, "You purchase the truck for us, the shell, we'll put it together." We saved a tremendous amount of money versus a custom-made truck. They wanted like $185,000 for a truck like that. We bought the truck and put the interior in ourselves for about $60,000, so we were able to do it. It's very versatile. It goes on all the SWAT calls in for the county SWAT team. It goes out on the hazardous materials call-outs, and it also has been used extensively at the Apple Festival, the International Festival, by the police departments as a on-scene command post. The vehicle to the left is a hazardous materials vehicle. That was purchased about 3 years ago, and that has all the equipment to use by the county hazmat team, and you can see the trailer attached to the back of it. That was recently added. That's a decontamination unit, so when these hazmat technicians come out of an emergency and they have the suits on, they have to actually go through a scrub down, take a shower, and be medically evaluated after they come out of a chemical release, and that's what that trailer is for. Some of our planning efforts, we're required to do a county emergency all hazards plan, or an EOP. That addresses everything from, yes, we have earthquakes, to tornadoes, floods, snowstorms. We recently added, as a sign of the times, a terrorism annex. We also have a standalone hazardous materials emergency plan. That's Caroline's job. She does that on a yearly basis. It was just submitted to the state. It goes in every October, and it was concurred with no recommendations for change. We recently did a mass casualty update to our mass casualty plan. Prior to that, basically every entity had their own thing. Now we have a county-wide approach. So if North Ridgeville has to go to Wellington and assist, they have the same type of equipment and the same type of paperwork to fill out versus something totally different. Cameo is a system developed by the National Safety Council, and I'll try not to talk in acronyms here. Cameo stands for Computer Aided Management of Emergency Operations, and that tracks all the hazardous materials in the county. You can actually bring a map up in Lorain County, pinpoint a location, enter the chemical, the amount released, and the weather data, and it will plot where that chemical will move in a certain time frame so you can determine your evacuation radius. And it's also got census block maps in there. We can actually tell how many people live in that area so we can plan ahead, so we happen to know how much would be needed for a shelter if it happens to be open. The Emergency Operations Center has a suggested operating guideline book. That's been in effect since we moved it into the building, and in fact it's been faxed all over the state. A lot of people have robbed ours. Of course, I talked to you about the damage assessment team, and also we've been very involved in school safety planning, assessments. A number of years back, shortly after Columbine, then Prosecutor Greg White put a group of 25 people through a school of how to do assessments of emergency plans for schools. And after that class was completed, our office coordinated. We went through every public school in the county and wrote an assessment and recommendations on an emergency plan. And shortly after that, we developed a tabletop exercise where a scenario is on a piece of paper. You set the key players in the school at a table, and this is a scenario, and we go through a series of questions, and they act out what they would do based upon their emergency plan. Some of the reasons we plan ahead in Lorain County, there's some interesting information here. Lorain County is the #1 in the number of tornadoes in the last 50 years. In the past 80 years, we're #1 in the number of tornado deaths. And that basically has to do with the death total was obviously Lorain in 1924. Since 1950 till now, which is what, 53 years, we've had 41 confirmed tornado touchdowns or funnel clouds sighted. 18 people have died and 175 are injured, and the damage total has been about $37 million in the last 50 years, so we're very vulnerable for that. We also sit on the largest east-west rail highway transportation corridor of hazardous materials in the United States. That's the Interstate 90 Turnpike Corridor and also the rail line that runs through Elyria. There are thousands of shipments a day of hazardous materials that go through those two routes. We're also in close proximity of the New Madrid Fault. That's an earthquake fault that runs roughly from St. Louis across Tennessee and up in the Appalachian Mountains. They've been able to determine that in the last 600 years, about every 200 years, that earthquake fault has a 8.0 or worse earthquake. The last one at 8.0 was in 1799 roughly. So I'm not the greatest math whiz, but I think we're a little bit overdue. What would happen is we would have some problems probably with our infrastructure. We're not built to, our gas lines and our sewer lines, things would probably not be able to handle a shake from that New Madrid Fault. So it would be a problem here. We're very close proximity with Davis, Bessie, and Perry nuclear plants. There are 2 emergency planning zones around a nuclear plant. One is the 10-mile planning zone, which if there's a release at a facility, everybody at 10 miles has to be evacuated. And Ottawa County and Lake and those areas extensively practice that. We're within what is called the 50-mile ingestion zone. Now, we will not probably be affected personally by radiation if there was a release, but what I'm saying is ingestion obviously means eating. The health departments and the agricultural people would have to monitor anything that would be grown in Lorain County on the outside, including the milk, for radiation if there was any detection or contamination through the food chain. And finally, we have over 700 facilities that use, store, manufacture hazardous materials in Lorain County. Like I said, that's Karen's job to track all that, along with Caroline. That's one of the largest number of facilities in the county and in the state of Ohio. We attend numerous meetings and organizational functions during the month and on a regular basis. The county fire chiefs, the police chiefs association, township trustees and clerks